Howdy, guys. Welcome to night 41 of Big Brother All-Stars, and this is Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. I thought it was going to be a quiet night. We had feeds out for 7.5 hours or so. I thought I was going to have nothing to tell y'all, but then the feeds came back on, and I got all kinds of things to tell you guys. All right, so let's go ahead and start it off, see if we can't squeeze this all in. First of all, as I mentioned, the feeds went down about 2:20 Big Brother time, West Coast time. They were out for a little over 7 hours. Long time, but yeah, no one knows what was going on. Still don't know for certain. Just as a real quick refresher, Danny is HOH. Kevin is on the block. Tyler is on the block as well after David removed himself using the disruptor power, and Danny had to put someone new up. Da'Vonne won the veto. She's trying to decide whether or not to use it to remove Kevin. Kevin obviously is trying to convince Da'Vonne to use it on him. Most of the rest of the house is trying to convince her not to. Mainly by saying that Kevin is safe no matter what. Tyler's going home, which isn't, but saying that Tyler's going home, trying to convince her. The veto ceremony should be later this morning. It's going to be interesting. All right, so that's the refresher. Now let's talk about what happened when the feeds came back on again around 2:30 or so West Coast time. First, quick little conversation in the bathroom. Enzo and Cody are talking. They're talking about needing others to win some of the HOHs to do some of the noms and some of the dirty work in this house. It can't just be the two of them. Cody is saying, man, I want Ian out so bad, but Danny won't do it because Ian is part of our Prime 4 alliance. And Cody's saying, I don't care. I'm still ready to send him home. He says he wants Ian gone so Nicole stops making decisions based just on trying to protect Ian. So he's ready to have Ian out the door. So we've got that. Now a couple of the bigger conversations. Up in the HOH room, this is going on as soon as the feeds come back on, and apparently it was a very long conversation ahead of this even. Danny and Da'Vonne are talking upstairs. Danny is trying everything possible to get Da'Vonne not to use the veto at the veto ceremony. She's telling her she will do anything if Da'Vonne just won't use it. She says, look, Da'Vonne, if you use it, that means I've got to put someone else up. That means 4 people that I've had to put up this week. 3 people are going to be in this house and all upset with me. You just can't do it. They're going to be coming after me. And she's also saying, and I don't want to put Ian up, even though he's not going anywhere. I don't want to put Ian up. Just destroy the guy. Da'Vonne's saying, look, you're saying you got all these targets. David is not coming for you. David is already he's got a bigger thing against Memphis. He's not going to go after you. But Danny keeps saying, look, so many people are going to be upset with me. You just can't do it, Da'Vonne. Danny is really putting the press on Da'Vonne. She's saying, Da'Vonne says, when I won, Kevin was so happy for me. He said, oh, you're going to take me out to the block. He was just so incredibly happy. Danny says, well, Da'Vonne, I was happy for you too because you'd already told me you wouldn't use a veto, and now you went back on what you told me. And Da'Vonne says, I know. Danny is also saying, look, I'm going to be able to help your game much more than Kevin ever will. He's just going to be on the block next week as a pawn again. He'll never be able to really help you. I can help you. So why would you work with Kevin more and just disregard what I want to do? Danny is also saying that she knows 100% that she has the votes to save Kevin. He says, look, Da'Vonne, the question isn't whether we can save Kevin. It's only, is it going to be a unanimous vote? That's what I'm working on right now. Danny also is telling Da'Vonne that keeping Kevin is a huge game move. It's going to tell everyone in the house how tight Kevin and Da'Vonne are, and that's going to hurt Da'Vonne's game to know that she has such a tight alliance there. Da'Vonne responds and says, look, everyone already knows that Ian and Nicole are super close and clearly friends, and yet somehow y'all aren't so worried about that, right? Da'Vonne is also saying, look, you're sure worried now, but you didn't seem to care that much when I and Bailey are on the block. You don't care that Kevin's on the block, but suddenly if Cody or Ian or Nicole's game's a little bit at risk, y'all are all like, oh, we got to fix that. We're all worried about it now. So she's seeing this disparity between how some people are being treated versus the others. Danny is saying, look, Da'Vonne, no one thinks you're going to use a veto. If you do it, you're going to surprise everyone. They're all going to be upset and all of that. Da'Vonne is saying, look, Danny, obviously no one trusts you in this house. And Danny says, wow, what are you talking about? And she says, well, if everyone in the house is so worried about me using the veto, it must be because they're worried that you may put them up on the block as a replacement. So if they're that worried about me using it, they just must not trust you, Danny. Da'Vonne is handling this well. She's got arguments for everything. Let's see. Davon finally, she's saying, look, if it's guaranteed, if you've got guaranteed the votes to save Kevin, then surely you've got the votes guaranteed to save Ian as well. So Tyler's going home either way. So whatever. So again, and at that point she leaves. Again, long conversation. Danny tried so hard. I try to be impartial. I try to be objective. But Davon, use the veto. Use the veto. Don't fall for it. Use the veto tomorrow. Okay. Back to impartiality, I guess. And so as soon as that conversation is over, we have Davon goes into the have-not room, goes to sleep. Everyone else is in bed. Danny grabs a glass of water, pours it out in the HOH sink so that she has an excuse to go downstairs, fills it back up with water, proceeds to go in, talks to Cody, wakes him up. They come up to the HOH room. She tells him, says, look, Davon is going to use the power. She didn't say it specifically, but she's going to use the veto. And she says, I think I've got two options. One, am I just caring too much about Ian going home? Just let him go home, whatever, not make a big stink about it, and we'll just move on. She says, or here's another option. How about before or during the veto ceremony, if I ask everyone in the house to raise their hand if they promise to send Tyler home as a way to convince Davon that Kevin is absolutely safe, so why raise a ruckus, why raise a stink? She says they'll give a heads up to Tyler ahead of time. Of course, everyone's is lying. They're planning to keep Tyler. They're going to send home Kevin or whoever else goes up against him. But she wants to have this house meeting type situation to try to convince Davon that everyone's on board, that they will make sure he doesn't go home if she just doesn't use the veto. Use the veto. All right. Finally, after that, they think they're done, and they decide they need to get the whole committee in and discuss this even more. So in the HOH room, 3:30 in the morning, Big Brother time, 5:30 Houston time, 6:30 in the morning for you East Coasters. It's been a long night. They have a committee meeting. They have a meeting of the committee alliance minus Tyler, who is in bed. I think Kevin's next to him. They decided it doesn't really matter since he's on the block anyway. So we've got Cody, Danny, Christmas, Nicole, and Memphis, the committee alliance. Danny is telling them the same thing, saying, look, she's going to use a veto. I just know she's going to use it. She talks to them about doing the hand raising at the veto ceremony. They're going back and forth saying, yeah, should we do it then? Should we do it before the veto at breakfast or something else? And then they start getting into the idea of, hey, let's do it. Let's make the two nominees go into the storage room and ask everyone else to raise their hands if they're willing, if they're promising to send out Tyler. So they're saying, well, is Kevin going to be willing to do that? Is production going to let them go into the storage room and have this discussion? The meeting was still going on when I started recording this. The last part, it sounds like they're still going to do the meeting, perhaps at the veto ceremony, probably at the veto ceremony, but we shall see. But she wants to use that as a last gasp effort to try to show Davon that we're all together in this. We're all going to vote to save Kevin. Tyler's a goner. So why even mess with it, Davon? Why even mess it? I don't think it's going to work. This is the first time Davon has ever won a power in her life at competition. She's not going to not want to use it. I think she would want to use it for that reason alone. But she also has Kevin, who's been talking to her a lot. He's very suspicious of everything. She has already talked about, she feels like the entire rest of the house is lined up against her and Kevin and David. Everyone raising their hands together is not going to be more indication, or is not going to dissuade Davon from thinking that everyone else is aligned against her. So I don't think it's going to work at all, but we shall see. It should be an exciting Monday morning. Danny is saying that Davon if she uses the veto, it's going to be a slap in Danny's face. Really? No, it's part of the game. If you win the veto, you have the right to use the veto. That's just the way it is, Danny. Memphis had some good points in this meeting. Memphis is questioning, saying, look, if we're saving Ian or Kevin, either one, or I guess if we're sending one of them home, is it worth having an upset Davon? Saying maybe, but then it comes out Davon's going to be upset no matter what, because we're all talking so much about Tyler going home, whether we then turn around and save Ian or we save Kevin, depending on whoever ends up there. Davon's going to see it as that we were trying to dupe her no matter what. So she's going to be a little upset anyway And Memphis points out, says, she wins HOH or Kevin or David, we're going to be on the blocks anyway over the next week. So maybe it doesn't matter whether she's upset or not. He says, I don't care, but keep that in mind. And Christmas points that out as well. Says Davon's going to be upset no matter what. Memphis is saying, look, again, it doesn't matter. She's going to be upset no matter what if we don't send Tyler home after so much promises that we will. So hey, take the shot. It's not going to hurt. Do it, whatever. And then later he does bring up the point saying, on the other hand, if we don't do any of this, if we just play it cool or whatever, then maybe it's going to give chances she's going to feel like she needs to make good with Danny for forcing her to put up a fourth person. And so he said maybe it keeps Davon a little bit happier. But again, playing a little devil's advocate, I think that they're going to try this little meeting and see what happens. Towards the end of the conversation, right before I shut it down, Danny is telling the house, because they're saying, well, who are we going to put up, Danny? And he says, look, Kevin comes off the block, Ian is going up. That's all there is to it. Ian's going up. So it gets back to her first point of, am I worrying too much about a single person? If Kevin comes off, because Davon uses it, we'll just put Ian up. Tyler's still going to be safe. It's going to be still a committee, 6 strong and all of that. And maybe that's just the easiest thing. But they're working it. They're working the angles. They're putting all the pressure on Davon. I think the more they put the pressure on Davon of this sort, the more she's going to resist and say, nah, God, they ain't going to work. But we shall see tomorrow. All right, guys. Again, I thought we were going to have feeds out all night long, but we got them at the end in quite a few conversations. So we will see what happens this morning. I will be back Tuesday morning. We'll follow up and talk a little bit more. Just as a final, if y'all want some live interaction, I've got my show on the TV Co-op tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. Be answering a lot of Big Brother questions back and forth. So come on out, download the TV Co-op, come on out, ask the questions, and we'll just we'll answer and talk all questions, all Big Brother for the entire show. Y'all have a great one, guys. Cheers. SKD 143. Bye.